Okay, Beth asks another good question. It says, why does sin or strongholds have to be passed down? I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, she can put in the comments, or someone else can always make comments or suggestions or challenges. I'm open to change and all. I think she's probably referring to Exodus 20, and I looked this up right before I started the video. It says the Exodus 20 is the commandments, the Decalogue, the 10 commandments. It says, let's see. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them. He's talking about don't having images and idolatry. Ooh, it's horrible. For I, the Lord, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Let me read on, because the next verse is really very revealing. And showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Well, I think it should be evident in nature, in history and experience, even now, modern experience, that children, two things. One, that they tend to follow the steps a lot of times of their father and mother. Not always. And that's the key here. He said, I'm going to continue visiting their sins if they continue doing third and fourth. But then he says, remember what he just said, thousands of generations. I'm going to go, really, I'm a merciful, loving, kind, beautiful, wonderful God, which he is. He's a sweetheart. And he really wants to show mercy. But for those who keep sinning as their fathers did, and in the book of Deuteronomy, it says, a son shall not be punished for the father's sins, and vice versa. I mean, yeah, for vice versa. And so it isn't, there's the history and experience of those who tend to follow the ways of their father. They're passing down traditions that sometimes are not good. And I know in my life and other lives, you can find things that you picked up that you wish you wouldn't have from your parents. And sometimes it can go as deep as addictive type stuff, whether it be like alcohol or drugs or, just that in the environment, and they're being brought up under a false foundation, and they're being brought up incorrectly, in error, immorally, many of them. And so that stuff tends to cycle in generations, and it's their choices, but they're more apt to usually go that way because that's how they're being brought up. But there's way too many on the other side of the experiences that don't do what their parents do. They do really well. And that's biblically sound, and is biblically portrayed often. If you look through the book of Kings and Chronicles and Samuel and all, particularly with Judah, that you had the 10 tribes of Israel above. And by the way, there's not one good king, I don't think, in any of those. They're all wicked and evil. So there's one of the experiences, the negative experiences. But in the two tribes, Judah and Benjamin, in that tribe, in that area, in that region, in the southern part of Israel, then you had bad kings, and then you had good kings. It's a mix. So you have a bad king, and the next king is really good. I mean, you have people such as, Manasseh. Of course, he changed and repented at the very last second, which is amazing. That's another thing, that God even had mercy on him. That's another story. I actually did a video on that. But anyway, then there's great kings. I'm not going to go in particular order. Jehoshaphat, Hezekiah, Josiah. I think it's Asa or something. Really good kings, awesome kings. Even them, they had mistakes. I think every one of them, if you look through their lives, for even David. Well, no, David was before. David was good. Solomon was good. Then he turned bad. May have come back. And then you had Rehoboam and Jeroboam. That's where it went terrible. And where you had 10, and then the 2 tribes, and that whole thing is just awful. And so again, it's choices that people make. And so the punishments, there are some consequences that go down the line, but there's sort of a heredity, heredity or genetics, but not when it comes to sin. It's a moral thing, but there are some tendencies that can happen because, you're being brought up liking a certain food because you ate that food all your life. You like that food for the rest of your life. Same thing with sin and temptation and all. But there's definitely exceptions. I keep going back and forth, don't I? But I think that's accurate to say that even though there might be cycles of what they call generational curses and things, strongholds and all. It's not necessary. I know that things that in families where a child is being brought up and they totally do the opposite of the parents because they saw the negative in it and they just said, I'm not doing that, and they didn't. So again, choices are involved here. I think that answered it. I hope it did. I hope it's clear. All right, God bless you. Bye.